All right, what's going on, everybody? This is the VE Movie News again with Charlie and Garrett once again back here. It's been like a year since I've been on the channel or something like that. It's been
It's
it's
been a
been a
good
hot
minute, my
minute.
brother.
I haven't
Oh
been
yeah.
on. The last thing I think we did was a review for I forget what, maybe
It
Birds of
might be
Prey.
Birds of Prey.
If that's
Yeah.
how long ago that was, that's literally
Whoa.
like 2019 or something. That's crazy. It was, but yeah, because that was the last movie we saw that year until
Last movie saw in the theaters before the really pandemic really
yeah,
started
and
rolling
I
in.
didn't see another movie that year until like I mean I might have seen some stuff that I'd already seen, but I didn't see a new movie again in that year until uh, Wonder Woman came out. But anyway, it's all relevant DC anyway. So yeah, this is the Suicide Squad review. So yeah, James Gunn just continuing to pretty much prove that he's the best comic book movie director. That's not like just doing one thing. Like he's able to go take multiple sets of just kind of reject characters, which I really hope he doesn't get typecasted into doing because I want to see him take like an actual serious character at some point. But like
Yeah.
this film, I mean, just give me your brief thoughts on this, Charlie, because like I know for me, like there was so much that stood out about this, and it was very like to me, this is like the most stylized comic book film we've gotten since like The Dark Knight. Like,
Yeah, exactly. This is something that when it was announced, you and I were both talking about. Whoa, James Gunn doing the fucking Suicide Squad. Like we were like, okay,
exactly. Like
this is
that's
gonna be
like
fun.
of all the things they could have given him to do, and I remember we discussed that at
Right.
the time. I was like, well, imagine if they gave him like a Suicide Squad reboot or something, because like that's. And I don't think anyone thought like reboot, like rehash, whatever you want to call this, is sort of like it's. I mean, it's really a sequel, honestly. Like,
It's
um,
yeah, it's like a soft reboot slash sequel because they do acknowledge the other one existed, right? And that's important to know. And I mean, yes, this is part of the overall story of the DCEU. It is our first movie
it was
since
so
earlier
strange
this year.
seeing the
Yeah,
DC intro at the very beginning of this film because it's so because I knew going in this was going to be a very irreverent, very dark film because when you hear that it's got an R rating and that it's James Gunn, it just makes you go back to his days as an R-rated film director when he was all that, and that was actually kind of what it's ironic because that's what got us here in the first place, right? Was the stuff that he did back then and the kinds of jokes he was making that got him in trouble, that got him to go to DC. Then Disney now made him like the space lord of Marvel. Literally, I think he's the one that's in the control of like all the major Marvel like space stuff or something like that.
oh
Maybe,
yeah.
maybe.
And this movie was
Um,
very R rated,
oh
and
my
that is felt
goodness.
throughout the movie.
Yeah, so let's talk about that before. My brief thoughts. I just have to say the opening of this film is absolutely incredible. Like
I love how they didn't skip anything. They just
yes, they
right
got
to it.
straight to it, and I love and we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, but I just love the misdirection of like, okay, this is the team, this is what's gonna happen, and they even threw in some characters that you're like, in your head are almost like protected by plot armor in a way. At least they were in the previous film that they had appeared in. And then just flipping that all on its head, all for it to just be like, we literally had two intro sequences in this movie. It was
Yeah,
great. Like, and
in the
it
little
works
reverse in
flawlessly.
time.
Yep,
Yeah,
and it works flawlessly. Like maybe not flawlessly, but it works well enough that it buys you into the rest of the story, and you're more now interested in the characters. And there are stakes in a comic book movie. This is unprecedented, like um
and that is felt throughout. Absolutely.
um. But yeah,
And
so
I'm with you. I over just my overall just little impression. Like I enjoyed this. I walked away. I thought it was funny. I thought it was emotional. And honestly, the rated R impacts of this movie had me floored like the entire time. Like
yeah,
truly,
so
it
that
you yeah, it was just awesome.
one of the funny things about this movie that I didn't expect to maintain was like it's kind of visceral with a lot of the gory stuff and that's very much James Gunn, but it's also just very much I feel like analogous to the sort of vibe the Suicide Squad is supposed to have associated with it. That's why when
Absolutely.
you almost have a little sense of dread when you hear James Gunn gets the Suicide Squad movie because sorry about the cat because of
Podcast.
his propensity to not shy away from showing things that actually happen when like people with superpowers battle, but anyway,
Absolutely.
so one of the things that we wanted to talk about were our favorite scenes. So while I'm getting the cat to stop doing that, can you just talk about what your favorite scenes in this movie were, Charlie?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So for me, there was a couple that really stand out, and there's a couple characters that really stand out. But to me, the scene that I couldn't believe was happening, and once you realize what happens, you almost shit yourself. It is when they're going through the village
Yeah.
to rescue Flag, and they accidentally kill all
It literally
of the
hits
people.
every trope of every
They
like
kill
Black
everyone
Ops like
that's on their side. It's
yeah.
just like, oh my god,
And
what did they
it's
just
beautiful
do?
because James Gunn does this thing where he sets it up as these two Black Ops sort of soldiers. I don't know if Peacemaker actually was ever in the
Trying
military.
to
I don't
one
know if
up
they,
each
I
other.
don't know if they said if he was, but he was trained by. They both were trained by their dads, who were both Spec Ops. So like, so it's like I don't know. I know Bloodsport was in the military with Flag, but I don't know if Peacemaker was. But either way, like it's just and they're the one-upsmanship, and which that's by the way a really cool scene just in and of itself. Like if that had just been an action scene, we
Yep.
all would have just been like, oh my gosh, that was incredible.
But
That's
my
why these
god,
two
after it, you're like,
and then
what
you
the hell
realize that
just
all of
happened?
that was just like rewatching that scene the second time. You're just like, it's because you know what's happening the whole time. And you're just like, you want you, but it's like it also it's the movie's paced brilliantly, which I think is also like
Yes.
it doesn't feel like maybe at one point throughout the movie I was like, okay, what's going on, and that's toward the middle, but like. Because there's a little bit of a transition in the story that happens with the Harley Quinn stuff, but that's not bad. It's
That's
just
actually,
out
yes,
of place.
that's kind of what I was gonna say too. Is the whole Harley Quinn thing, to get the end result of it?
Yes.
It's worth it. But when it's
Yes.
happening, I was like, why are we getting a 10?
Why are we sidetracked to this?
a
Why
10
is
to
this a
15-minute
subplot in the
segment
movie?
of
You know,
Harley getting married and all this? But at the
Mhm.
end, it all makes sense. It lands the joke perfectly. She
Yeah.
straight up murders the guy for having red flags, and it's brilliant and it works. But when it was happening, I was like, what is going on here? Why the sudden change?
I think my favorite shot throughout the movie is definitely the shot of them all walking together as a team through the rain.
Beautiful.
It
Yep.
is it's that's like the mark of just absolutely beautiful cinematography. So hats off to the cinematographer there. When James Gunn is given the freedom to do what he wants, he's going to do innovative filmmaking things because he knows
Exactly.
what level of director he is. And his back was kind of against the wall with this because if you be honest, like if DC and Marvel see this movie and it turns out to be a dud, I mean, not just like financially, but like actually the film is bad because, it's not like studios don't know the difference. They just don't care if it makes money,
Like the word of mouth, if it's just getting destroyed like
Yes.
Snake Eyes was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. So like if it's just not, but so they know what a good movie is. And so it's like, this is a smash success, even if like financially it didn't make the money it should have. There's no way they don't give him more films. He's already been in discussions to continue with DC,
Yes.
so we're gonna see some more out of him. The discussions and rumors that I'm hearing, we can talk about that a little bit at the end, are crazy. Like if some of that stuff happens, I would love it. But anyway. I think that's probably my favorite scene too, because it's a great it's only like 30 seconds long, but like that 30 or like 45 seconds, whatever it is, where they're in like first getting into Jotunheim is like it's just an incredible, like you can tell that it's rain machines, but your brain doesn't care. Like you're like, no, it just looks
Yes.
it looks beautiful. If they had done this with actual rain, it wouldn't have looked as good. Like
Yeah. And they cover quickly a couple of the tropes from the other Suicide Squad movie, because they're kind of assuming you know what the Suicide Squad is, but they cover those tropes really quickly. They let you know, yeah, these guys are prisoners. They're doing a Black Ops covert mission. And then they kind of just lay into us when we get to the Team 2 segment, after we see, Pete Davidson get shot in the face. And
I
brilliant.
didn't see this with a theater of people. I saw this on streaming. I will openly admit that. But what was the pop like in the crowd when he gets shot? Like, I'm just curious.
Because I think everyone's thinking Pete's going to be a little bit of a main character.
Yeah, because he's an established like sympathetic character. I mean, in the world, like, and they're like, he gets shot immediately. Like I almost wonder if that is not because people dislike him or anything, but like if just because like the reaction in the crowd has to just be like shock at first.
Yes.
Yeah. And then like as the scene rolls on, just come like horror. It's crazy. It's almost like there's almost like a horror movie vibe to it, because it's James Gunn. And he's willing to absolutely kill anybody in this movie and all of the people in the movie if he wants to, There's a real possibility that at some point this ended with Starro just taking over and killing everybody, I don't think that's what was happening, but
fiction is that is just awesome.
Oh my goodness. What an old character to bring in too. Like just a random character that just came into DC Comics. Like, when comic book villains were really weird and hokey, like that, like that, it's an example of how you can use one in a sense that makes sense. Like, of course, the Suicide Squad be said to fight Starro, because they're not going to send the actual heroes to fight this like actual threat. because well, they would, but this is what the government is sending because they're not gonna. Because they don't trust Superman. Literally, the whole reason why this group even exists is because they don't trust the Justice League. You know, like
Yeah, and really, that's kind of our overall plot of the movie is them going on a mission to erase all of the files. And I think a big part of it, and they hit on it a few times, is that the U.S. was involved with it, and they didn't want that to get out.
Yeah, this
So
is
they wanted
very
to delete everything about Starro. That's kind of our overall mission, and I mean, they hit 800 things along the way, but it makes it really fun.
yeah.
But I like that mission for this one. I wanted to ask you about one thing when we were talking about the opening scene. Boomerang biting the dust in the first 5 minutes felt like. Was that shocking to you? Because
It was surprising, but I honestly didn't. So we had this discussion back when this movie was announced.
Boomerang
before
being
James
one of the only
Gunn.
OG characters.
Okay, I need to stop the cat really quickly. Maybe 1 second. I apologize.
No problem. Yes, and Boomerang being one of the only OG characters they brought back, when he bit the dust so quick, I was definitely really shocked. They did it in a good fashion though.
Before even I believe James Gunn had been announced as the director, I talked to you about this because none of the original actors had initially been announced as returning for the Suicide Squad sequel. Are you crazy?
Glad they did.
Sorry, the cat's being insane right now, but she really is. I apologize to everybody, but no, I mean like so Will Smith. So we'll just bring it up now. Will Smith's absence was felt, dude. The fact that he could have been in this movie and he even had been. Like and I said this to you right after we saw the film. If it had been the original Suicide Squad plus a few new characters that were the ones that were all slaughtered in this opening scene, it would have had a much different impact. Like, right? Because it would have been James Gunn essentially saying, "No, I'm rewriting this."
Yes.
Well, he got the benefit of the doubt here because they just didn't come back.
And he did a brilliant job with Bloodsport. He made it work.
It does feel like they just inserted, like people were saying, Bloodsport in to be a new Deadshot, essentially. You know, like
from what we know, originally he was Deadshot, and they were just like, you know what? Let's just make a new character.
There's other there's other similar characters in DC. Yeah. So it's like there's so many street level characters in DC, and that, by the way, is why this movie is able. Like, if any of the other DC landscape characters were involved in this film, none of this would be able. You can't like take the Justice League and do the same thing, right? Like 30% of the Justice League will end up dead, and that's Batman. You know, like, and he might even survive because of his armor. You know, like, so it's like you know what I'm saying? Like, so this only happens with the street level characters. You know, so it's fascinating. No, I mean, like, what I want to see going forward with this group of characters, because I presume that characters that we at the end of the film we'll just talk about, they got freed, you know, if you will. They got let go anyway. They got a looser leash. I don't think they're going to be fully detached from the Suicide Squad. I doubt it. But because what else are they going to do? You know. But like anyway. But this will be the group that we have going forward that interacts with the main DCEU eventually, I believe, if they ever do.
Depending on what. Who knows with this universe where it's at right now?
I honestly thought Robert Pattinson was going to be the next Batman, and then apparently no.
I want to touch on a couple things. I want to touch on a couple of these characters. And just right off the bat, did you have a favorite character that stuck out? You could pick more than one because I know it's going to be pretty tough here.
So if I had to pick a favorite character, if I have feet to the fire, I had to pick one. I really liked how Idris Elba like carried this movie. Like
yes.
I don't think everyone else needed to be. You see
him grow into kind of becoming that leader, taking the stand. He's like, you know what? She's gonna blow my head off. Let it be when I'm doing. It
backfires like in the worst way on Waller, and it's satisfying. Like you're like Waller, you want him to become
good. Was a great feeling and got a pop.
Like it backfires on her because she's the one who wants him to become a leader, and he does, but it doesn't go the way that she wants. In a similar way that it didn't at the end of the first Suicide Squad with Deadshot. You know what I mean? Like. He's similar. It's people have pointed out it's the same arc. Well, yeah, because at the end of that one, we needed to have a team that could go and work with the rest of and if they're just at the best of a Waller either way, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you got to get that looser leash. Anyway, whatever. I thought I messed those words up. But anyway, I mean, so. If I had to pick one, it's probably. But I really also enjoyed the take on Ratcatcher, especially what they did with Taika Waititi in this film, who I forgot was in it until I saw him in the film, and I was like, "Wait a minute,
the fucking goat." I think
Because he was an
Ratcatcher
early
2
casting announcement. They were like, "Yeah, Taika Waititi is involved," and I was like, "Oh, Taika Waititi and James Gunn, that's awesome." Because even if Taika is only in like a part of the movie, like he's going to be involved.
two of my favorite
And
directors
like,
right now, man. Easily.
it's crazy that they're working together like that too, which tells you that they're like on the same page when it comes
They
to
know.
working together. So, and that explains exactly why. Like, if you think about it, all the films these guys are working on over the next like 3 years, they're working on together. So it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like,
They did a good job here, and I speaking of Ratcatcher, I think my favorite was Ratcatcher 2. I really think I didn't know anything about this character. I never didn't know anything about this woman who's
so
an actress.
basically, every character in this film is just a reject DC
Yeah.
character. Like
Yeah.
that was even Bloodsport is like the third best
And
marksman
what they
in
do,
DC.
just
Like,
they make you care about these little rats. Her story has such a deep meaning, and they call her father's drug.
do you know it
addiction
vibed
burden.
like Ant-Man to me
Which
in a
is
way.
beautiful.
Like the great parts,
Yeah.
like the great symbiotic like relationship that Scott Lang and I'm assuming the originally Hank Pym had with the ants. It feels the same with Ratcatcher and the rats. And like, like people talk about the heart of the movie being like, um, all the stuff with the squad coming together. It's literally the Ratcatcher storyline. She's the only
It's
one that
so
actually was
beautiful, man.
like that actually knows how to feel love. You
It
know,
has such a
like
deep meaning.
because like you have every aspect of love. You have King Shark who feels no love, and the same thing with Polka Dot Man. Both of them are basically these outsiders that never felt any love and were literally hurt by everyone that ever cared for them. You know,
Those are the next
and
two I wanted to touch on too. Yes.
yeah, we'll get to them. And then Bloodsports, obviously we know what's going on with his daughter. His relationship is strained there, you know. But Ratcatcher has this stable relationship with her father that she can rely on, that she can kind of like show to the rest of the team in a way that. So that's why I would, she may even be my favorite character just because of that.
Yes,
Um,
I'm with it, dude.
And like she, by the way, has the perfect. I don't know what it is about her body shape, but she fits the outfit that the traditional Ratcatcher wears like to a T. I don't know why, but her shape just works.
That
in it. I
mask
don't
is
know.
sick too.
Yeah, that's the mask that the character traditionally wears. I didn't even know this. I looked up Ratcatcher the other day just to be curious. I was like, what is this character? It's again, if you look up any of these characters, you're gonna find limited runs, and usually they get killed off. Is usually the case because like, maybe not killed off, but like written out of the story, like, which in DC usually makes that. So but I mean,
yeah.
but yeah,
And Sylvester Stallone's take on King Shark.
I
we had
I don't
King
even know
Shark
how
in The
much
Flash,
people have
we had
actually
him in
talked about that. Like,
in the Harley Quinn TV show, and now this.
I don't
version
think
of it,
people
and this
know.
version is so different, and he's so lovable because, like you touched on, I mean, all he ever wants. There's that scene when they're driving through the town, and he's looking outside, just no emotion. He's just sad. That's all he wants. He just wants friends. He wants a connection. He wants love.
Yeah, there's the beautiful shot of him seeing the couple
Yep.
kissing and being
And you
like
can just
kind of
see,
making
you can
that
see the
connection.
emotion on a shark's face.
Yeah, that's just dude. The animation on King Shark. Hell, let's talk about that for like 10
Beautiful.
seconds. Like it looks real. Like it looks like there's just a shark person sitting there. You know.
And if you compare this to the King Shark that we have in the Flash, I prefer this one much more, and the Flash TV show that is.
Yeah,
And he acts so much different than the King Shark in the Harley Quinn show, and all three of them are good in their own ways. And I thought what they did with this was genius. They made us care about a shark, bird. Like, dude, there's so many fucking moments that are just beautiful with it. And yeah, and then go ahead and touch on our boy Polka Dot Man.
Yeah,
who's
who's
supposed to be seen as like the wimpiest character, and what does he do?
I mean, he
literally
comes
disintegrates people.
Yeah, so the irony of the character is that like Polka Dot Man could be the strongest of the group. Like he could absolutely, if he just embraced that he was like had these like interdimensional polka dot powers that like are super weird. Like
Yeah.
But he can fry people. I mean, we see in the one moment when he gets mad when what's the name of the character that gets killed? I can't remember. The one that Milton.
Dude,
when
come
Milton
on.
dies. Listen,
Milton sacrificed his life for these people.
Listen, Milton deserves better.
And then Harley calls Bloodsport Milton. Oh, yeah. Got me. That was brilliant.
Yeah. That's, oh my gosh. I love the idea that he's going to probably be referred to as Milton now too. But like, I think, I think that's part of the heart. People subtly will not realize this, but part of the heart of this film is like, yeah, we see it as a joke every time he sees his mom, but that's like real psychological torment that you're seeing there.
Yes.
Like you could really
That's
identify with
your
that.
mother.
Yeah, that's why Bloodsport takes it. He knows it's what he has to do in order to get him to fight, and it's messed up in a sort of objective way. That he does that because he knows he can take advantage of it. But like he knows also if he doesn't do that, they're probably all gonna die. And then like the juxtaposition of that moment, immediately him getting killed, is like it's supposed to hit exactly how it does. Is like he's the strongest of the group. Starro just absolutely wiped it. So it's literally going to have to come down to luck, which is how a group like the Suicide Squad's going to win against Starro, and teamwork.
Rats, man, the rats.
Like they
stabbing him in the eye.
Well, I love that one of the ways they established that. Yeah, I love one of the ways that they established that too is that King Shark immediately does his thing, or nom nom, but like
nom nom.
Where he goes up and he bites, but immediately like the strongest, like I would say probably like outside of Polka Dot Man, the strongest overall character is probably King Shark, right? So like, because I think even King Shark, I don't know if Polka Dot Man can burn King Shark
or Ratcatcher, because I mean she could.
Well, Ratcatcher can be like I feel like Ratcatcher's damage potential is high, but I also feel like if you have like a grenade of like an incendiary bomb, like you probably beat Ratcatcher. You know what I mean? Like because the rats aren't gonna like a you know what I'm saying. There's ways you could counter Ratcatcher. King Shark's probably just gonna kill you. But I'm just saying like immediately one of the strongest members of the team is just like kind of incapacitated because they don't really have much they can do in this. None of them can really do much. The closest to that is like when we see and I love this little scene where his like gun has multiple pieces and he just keeps adding them. Like, is he gonna keep going? Like, it's like the 10 pieces later. Like that's what we would see in like a comedic movie. But this was a comedic movie, but like an actual straight comedy, not like a dark comedy like this.
There was some funny ass stuff.
This is the funniest movie I've seen in a while, I would say. And it's funny because two of the funniest movies I've seen in a while were both directed by the same guy. So it's like. I think James Gunn, like I said at the top, is proving that he knows exactly what he's doing.
Absolutely,
and that
man.
Nobody else is really doing it better right now. I mean, there's individual efforts that you can point to that are like, oh, this movie maybe is better than the Suicide Squad or the Guardians movies. But like, I don't know. I think it's pretty impressive to make like to me the second best DCE movie like that they've done so far. With like. The limited character, it's incredible because he did, and it almost feels like he did this on purpose. He took like the worst characters, the absolute most ridiculous plot that you could think of, because like we said at the top, there's not much of a plot to the movie. That's not a knock on the movie. It takes a simple story to do what they did with this film. Like if you had tried to do this complicated story, and this is part of the problem with the first Suicide Squad, it tries to do this giant world ender threat, and it doesn't need to, and you know what James Gunn did? He did that anyway, and he made it work. Because Starro technically is a pretty big threat. Like
those little transitions in the editing, man. Just Operation Jotunheim, Operation Harley.
And then, dude, I love all the
Suicide
transitions.
Squad versus Starro the Conqueror. It's like
the first taste you get of that with the opening title thing with the Warner Brothers Presents. You know what I mean? Like.
Yep.
Absolutely beautiful, because it's like, oh, this is what we're doing. Like as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, this is the film we're having, like
with the blood. I just want to touch on another character. We're going to touch on three more: Flag, Peacemaker, and Harley. But Rick Flag, he was one of my favorite parts of the first Suicide Squad. I'm really glad they brought him back. And he bit the dust, and it was beautiful. It progressed the story. Part of the story was what he did, and I really loved how they I hate to say how they killed him. I thought it was perfect for the story. And it made so much sense.
Yes, and I think what sucks too is like you root for Peacemaker to become this likable character throughout the course of the film, and you see that he's not completely terrible. Like he's
just at his core, he's got his laws.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got he's not breaking them.
Yeah, and he's almost like a stand-in for like the kinds of people you see out in the world today that just I don't think they're bad people, but they stand for beliefs that they just can't get past,
And he likes Flag. He literally calls him a war hero.
Literally, he respects Flag. He wants to probably be more like Flag because he's
Yeah.
this decorated colonel from the military. They got put into this super secret spec ops program. Like and like yeah. So I mean, it's like I it's a great arc, and I think it's sad that we don't get to see more Rick Flag going forward. But I think
Yeah.
that even like I think that the opportunity now exists with Peacemaker, who we'll get to in a second, to potentially maybe keep that sort of spirit alive in the DCEU through Peacemaker, maybe.
And I absolutely, transitioning off that, I absolutely think we will hear his line, Peacemaker, what a joke, reflected in the TV show for Peacemaker. I think it's gonna shake him to his core.
I think that's gonna follow him throughout this first
Yeah.
season, and it's gonna change him. It may even make him a better
He's gonna
person.
be
It
hearing
might
that.
make him a worse person. I don't know. Like that's the beauty of this show, and I think James Gunn is even involved with the show a little bit, maybe. But like,
Yep.
um,
He wrote it. I don't know if he's directing all the episodes. I'm sure
I
he's
don't know.
directing
I
some.
would assume he's gonna give people the opportunity because DC is not like it's DC TV is so weird. Like I finally started watching Titans, by the way, so you should totally start watching that if you have the opportunity. But like, and that's not Wreck a Wreck. I'm only 2 episodes in, but I'm saying for the two of us so that we can get on that.
Definitely.
But so far that show, I'll talk to you about that off stream because that's like a whole other thing. But DC TV is weird. Like they don't have. I feel like it's like traditional TV a lot of times because it's on networks. You know what I mean? So like you get like a bunch of different directors. Not that there's not in like other Marvel shows.
I believe
There
it's
is,
going
but
to
it's
be an
different.
HBO Max weekly release. Like they're planning on. It's already shot. It's in post production.
I'm curious to see like how that goes because if it goes super well, I mean, dude, John Cena
Real
doesn't ever
quick.
have to be in another film.
Yeah, and I was
Like
gonna say that since we're wrestling fans at our core, that's how we started this. That's how we did all this. This is the best I've seen John Cena. James Gunn knows how to get the best out of his actors, and I did not feel like John Cena was lacking at all. This made me more confident to see him in the Peacemaker show.
so yeah, that's the interesting thing about it. I think the Batista and John Cena are kind of both proving. And I mean, The Rock has been doing this for years now, but The Rock is kind of an anomaly. Like I think he was always the most
Probably the
talented
biggest
actor
star
in
in the world,
wrestling.
yeah.
He's always been like the best actor in wrestling, right? But like I think everybody can just tell that if you go back and look, he was basically just an actor out there, on a stage. I mean, for when he was wrestling, you know what I mean? Like it's what he was doing. But like John Cena and Batista are proving that those guys out there that are wrestling, they're just stunt performers with really incredible physiques, like you put on like these superheroes. I would not be surprised if some of these younger wrestlers end up in some of these roles, like because I'm just thinking in my head, like imagine if you pulled somebody like I don't know, I'm just picturing in my head like any of the main roster of WWE
Like a
in the
Roman Reigns or
MCU or the
Miz.
DCEU,
Yeah. I mean, The Miz, he's got all that fan casting, to go into the Mortal Kombat series, and it's like this.
He literally
this
is.
so
I
random.
mean, he literally is the character of Johnny Cage. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. That
it literally
transition
is.
is becoming more and more. Mojo Rawley just recently in Snake Eyes. We mentioned that earlier. And yeah, I think.
I don't think Mojo is moving the needle, though. I hate to say it,
but it's still cool. And
it's cool to see him. But
yeah, so John Cena, we had to talk about that. You guys know how it is. And last but not least, this was our first time seeing Harley Quinn since Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey had a lot of mixed reviews. When it first came out, I really liked it.
there are some weird takes out there on the
Yeah.
Harley Quinn in this movie, dude. I do not know what is happening. Like,
I really loved Birds of Prey when it came out. Over time, I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. I still really like the movie. I don't think it's the best.
but
DCU
people that
movie.
didn't like that film are letting it follow into this
They
film,
hated that movie.
and I don't understand why. Like,
This was not the same Harley Quinn from that movie.
no, which is a little disappointing because I actually liked where she ended up in that film.
Agreed. I kind of wish.
But
we
like,
had a
it's the
little bit of
same
that
thing as
emotion.
like we've had this discussion about several Marvel characters that do the same thing, right? Where they kind of have the same arcs across all of the movies because they're not that dynamic of characters, and that's okay because some of the characters had to fall to the wayside as they got deeper into the films. You know what I mean? DC's starting to figure that out, unfortunately, and it looks like Harley Quinn might be one of the ones that gets kind of bumped and like, well, now we're just going to use you how we want.
And without mentioning Joker once, you felt that emotion on her face, and that was a good job by James Gunn. I like what James
Fascinatingly,
Gunn
I
did
don't
with
know
it.
that honestly, I feel like the whole stuff with that was I almost feel like the one moment where she is kind of herself from the previous movie is when she has the scene in the middle of the movie where she kills I can't think of the character's name, but Luna
That
maybe or something
war
like that.
general thing. Yeah.
General Luna or something. I don't know, but anyway, I
Something,
know
yeah.
maybe that's from a different film. But like anyway, the guy, the Cortel Maltese president, that gets killed. It's I think that's the only moment where she really kind of because I feel like that's like the her that was fighting Black Hand. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but maybe not. Anyway, what I would say is we'll hit our final thoughts here in just a second. But I think I really enjoy what they did with Harley Quinn in this film. I wish that it didn't reduce what happened in Birds of Prey, but it almost feels necessary with the way people reacted to it. You
Because
know,
they didn't. I felt like they didn't touch Birds of Prey at all. There was no
they didn't.
mention to
It
it.
felt like it feels like she may not even be part of Gotham City Sirens now. That's a real possibility.
And we might be in the minority of really liking that movie.
We are.
You got people like Matthew Berry who just think it's the worst comic book movie of all time. That was a fun podcast that he did. And yeah, it's I wish they did at least maybe mention they mentioned why she got in prison, but it was for robbing a bank. Like, it was what it was. Maybe that's just
You know
like
what? The
being Harley
biggest
Quinn marks,
disappointment.
but
The weird thing is, she drove off with a kid at the end of that film, and that kid is nowhere to be seen
yeah, where is the
or
movie? Like,
mentioned.
I would have loved just a quick mention of Birds of Prey, but hey, it's okay. You know what? We can't get everything. I can live
No,
with it.
we.
And we'll
But
close it with like
she
you
does
said.
have one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, though, which is the gunfire through the hallways with the different people coming through different doors and the camera switching angles and
Oh, beautiful.
like
That whole
all the
scene.
cinematography in this film is incredible.
Yes. And her surprise shooting of the guy. I mean, that was one of the bigger like, whoa, what the you know.
You know, weirdly, I saw that coming. My brain immediately went there as soon as she tackled him into the guns. I was like, wait a minute, and that started
Talking
showing
about
on the floor.
kids.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Last time I
Like
saw red flags. Yeah. It's
I,
like,
I,
damn, Harley.
I
Okay.
listen. Like I'm just saying, like that was like, it kind of jumped into my head. I was like, there's no way they're gonna. And then, of course, then I thought, wait, well, it's James Gunn. And then as I was thinking that is when he got shot. You know what I mean? Like,
And that scene where she's like held hostage and then she just clicks super serious. Like there's no smile anymore.
no, yeah,
And
like
Harley
that's
just brutally fucking destroys the guy. It's like, all right.
the.
Overall, I liked Harley.
Oh,
in
there's
this
so
movie.
many good scenes in this film.
I wish they tapped on Birds of Prey, but that's okay.
The only
Um,
that's my I think my biggest complaint about this film is that it doesn't feel like it does feel like it's part of the DCEU, right? But it also feels like it almost could like exist as like its own comic book movie as
And that kind
separate.
of brings up the idea of maybe they're going the X-Men route. Maybe they're
That would
just
be
like, you know what?
interesting if they're just like, you know what, James Gunn has his movies over here, and James Gunn's universe may
And you could
interact
almost
with.
say the same with Shazam.
Dude, imagine if okay, this sounds insane. Imagine if DC had like two separate universes going at the same time in film, right? And then eventually they crossed over in like a multiverse crossover.
Because the Joker's not connected.
Because
Batman's not connected.
Flash is probably like Flash getting canceled creates the opportunity, not the film, the show getting cut off of the air or whatever. Like, wouldn't to me, because like that's always been the joke, right? It's like DC has the greatest opportunity ever because they have a Flash show that's been going on for like 14 years, like, and they already have
Arrowverse.
Flashpoint that's happened in that, but that doesn't mean that couldn't happen again. Like, what if the DC multiverse just crossed over, like, and all of it did, including the TV. But like, I don't think that'll ever happen. But I do think there's a good chance that like maybe the Matt Reeves, and if this is the way they go with the James Gunn universes that they create, and maybe Joker exists in that universe too or something. I don't think we'd see Joaquin again, but maybe a Joker from that, that timeline or something, I could see them doing something where all those movies connect up somehow, and then they connect with the other movies. It's not something completely unheard of, especially with like Marvel doing multiverse stuff now, like they always seem to like to try and match blow for blow. So don't get it twisted. DC's thinking about this. They're just not necessarily doing it yet,
Yeah.
But yeah, final thoughts. Go ahead.
Yep. Final thoughts. I enjoyed it. I truly think this is one of my favorite DCEU movies. It's up there with Shazam for me, and the 1 and 2 spot. I would have to really kind of rest on this and kind of make a decision of which one I think's better. But overall, both to me, we'll give our scores. To me, they're just like Shazam. It's a 9 out of 10 because we both give it the thumbs up on Rotten Tomatoes, but for our own channel, we like to give our score, and I give it the 9 out of 10, and I just loved it. The comedy hit for me, man. The comedy, the emotion, everything, it all hit for me, and like it works, and it has a lot of rewatchable value. Rewatchable, yeah, rewatchable value. Hence how we've both seen it multiple times already.
I guess my final thoughts would be like, if you have like any thoughts about whether or not you should see this film, like if you haven't watched it yet on streaming and you're just like watching this review to like see what the movie's like kind of about, what kind of scenes you're gonna get, I would just say go ahead and watch it, because like the worst thing that happens is it's not your cup of tea. You're gonna figure that out literally in the first 5 minutes. If this is not the kind of film for you, you're gonna know.
That's a good way to put it.
Like yes. You will know within the first like 20 minutes of the film. It's actually around the 20-minute mark when that hits. I didn't even realize that because it flows so nicely, but it's actually 20 minutes into the film when that opening, it's not really the opening scene, when that first scene on the beach happens, you know, like where everyone gets slaughtered. Like that scene is 20 minutes into the film, but you don't realize it because even like all the visual and audio storytelling that you get with Savant leading up to that point just guides you right along. But by the way, shout out to Michael Rooker for making the 5 minutes that he was in the film at the beginning like memorable.
Opening shot,
great. Yeah, and he looks great.
We also didn't mention the goat of the movie, Weasel. No one knew Weasel.
I just say I don't care what happens with the Weasel. I 0% care.
That thing had the goofiest run ever. Again, that heightens the Pete Davidson thing that we were touching on though. Pete and Michael Rooker had a lot of those opening scenes that we kind of really got that feeling they were going to be big in the movie, and
yeah,
they're gone instantly.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I would say if I was going to give it a rating, it would be an 8 out of 10. I don't think it would be a 9 for me, because for me a 9 is like that's like my top, and that's not that this film doesn't fit into that category. It's just getting really hard to compare the best comic book movies now because they all do a lot of the same things that I really like. So I kind of put them all on the same level. But like,
last movie that was a 10 for me was Jojo Rabbit, which was directed.
I can't think of the last 10 for me. It was something dumb that wasn't really a 10, but I really liked it. Yeah, I mean,
can tell you this year I got 2 9s. This and The Mitchells versus the Machines.
I'm trying to think what else have I seen this year. I don't know. Shang-Chi could end up being really good. It looks incredible. So
yeah, we got a lot of comic book movies coming up.
So many. This is the year of the comic book. All right. That's not true. That was like 2 years ago, but whatever. Like, anyway. So yeah, thanks so much for tuning into the review, guys, and we will see you all next time. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit the little bell so you know every time we go live or post a video. And see you.